Well, time after time that happened, enough so that people in the late 90s decided to pass a proposition referred to as the growth mandate, more commonly as Proposition S. And what that did was simply to say to the city councils in the future, instead of being able to increase land use intensity, you're going to have to not only go through the normal process of hearings that you went through and allow us, the public, to participate in those, and you're not only going to have to, as a council, vote to approve that increase in density. After you do that, it's going to have to come to a vote of the entire community. And what that did was to take the fun out of land speculation. Because the way developers think, and I don't say this in a pejorative sense, this is just their business model, and it's a good one. They look for areas that are highly attractive. They then go to those areas and speculate on that land, and they option that land. They don't purchase it. They just pay a few dollars and option the land, giving them the right to buy it at a later date. But they have the out that if they can't get the approvals for the increase in density that they want, they don't have to buy it. And so they've got a great system in place to allow them to minimize their risk and at the same time maximize their return. And you can't blame them for that. That's true not just in Escondido, that's true all throughout the United States. And that's the process that's used. So when that happens, and you have a council that says, why, of course, if you want to bring in the property adjacent to the wild animal park that might currently permit 12 units if it were developed in the county based on terrain and drainage and percolation, but you want to put 300 units on that and have us provide sewer service, why, come ahead. We're ready to do business with you. Well, fortunately, Proposition S was passed, and people now have a chance to vote. If you want to see that happen, you can say yes or no. At the same time, when Proposition S was written, it was decided that it should have a 20-year sunset clause, meaning it's only good for 20 years. And that was done in order to maximize the opportunity to defend it in court, because we thought for sure developers would bring suit. But because of this clause, they didn't. They just decided to wait it out. Well, guess what? That was passed in '98. In 3 more years, it goes away. And we're right back to square one, giving all of those who might be elected to future city councils the opportunity to do everything that they've always done before. So, number one, I encourage you to consider that. And number two, I encourage you to consider, and here's where the reframing comes in. So far we've just been talking history. Here's where the reframing comes in. And you know what that means, by the way? You hear that term by politicians, we have to reframe the issue. Well, look what, for example, look what Marie Waldron did whenever she reframed an issue that wasn't even something that could be handled locally, when she wanted to deal with the immigration problem that has to be dealt with nationally, but she made that a local issue by framing that to get elected. And what she really wanted to do was not to be on the city council, but to be elected to a state office, which she was successful in doing as a direct result of her ability to reframe that issue, even though there was nothing that the local cities in the state of California could do about it. So I'm suggesting to you that now, those of us who consider ourselves to be progressive, we need to reframe some issues. And instead of reacting to things that the loyal opposition, and by the way, they're not enemies. Those who disagree with us are not enemies. They're simply the loyal opposition. And I want you to know, even though I've been speaking to a group of fellow Democrats, I have not used the term Democrat or Republican. And I haven't done that for a reason. Because at the local level of government, you can't put Democrat or Republican by your name when you run for office, by state law. And I found that one of the reasons that I got elected as many times as I did, and there were 9 times that I got elected, The reason I did was because I had as many people in the party of the loyal opposition supporting me as I did who were in my party. And the reason I had that support was because I dealt with issues that cut across party lines. And I've said for years, there are no Democratic potholes or Republican potholes. There are simply potholes. And we all ought to have the motivation to cover them and fix them, right? And more importantly, there are no Democratic pocketbooks and Republican pocketbooks that shouldn't be protected. Both deserve protection. And the way you do that is you make growth pay its fair share on an ongoing basis. And you do that by making sure that quality of life standards are defined in the general plan. What's the response time of the police going to be, the fire department going to be, how often is trash going to be collected, how many library books per capita you're going to have or computers in the library, how many acres of parkland are you going to have per capita, and how much you're going to be willing to pay for flushing your toilet. Those are quality of life standards, back to the concept that Forrester described of the attractiveness principle. You don't want those things to get out of control or out of hand, because then you become less attractive. And you want this to be a sustainable area. And the way you do that is you say, if you agree with me that growth costs money, then future growth should be made to pay its fair share. And that's done through development impact fees. Now, at the moment, development impact fees are probably running $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 per home, per unit. And that seems like a lot of money. But the reality is, that's what it does cost to provide just the capital improvements. No maintenance or operation, that comes out of future taxes. But just the capital improvements, the bricks and mortar for police and fire stations, for park and recreation facilities, for storm drain facilities, for water facilities, for sewer facilities, for libraries and so forth, all of those capital improvements need to be paid for, and they come out of that $35,000 to $40,000 per dwelling unit that's paid for up front by developers when a building permit is issued in the first place. Now, what happens when you get to the point where you're a developer and you want to build 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 homes, as has happened most recently out in Charlotte's neighborhood, and you think to yourself, gee, I could make a whole lot more money if I could convince the city council to reduce the development impact fees. Well, guess what happened? They did, to the tune of some $3 million in that particular instance. Well, that $3 million is $3 million now that you, as existing taxpayers, don't enjoy in terms of being able to make improvements, capital improvements only, not maintenance or operation. And somebody has to pick that up. And you do it in one of two ways. Either your quality of life decreases, and I understand there's some concern about recreational facilities out in that area right now, or you end up having to increase your own taxes in order to pay for those things, be it swimming pools or more park acreage or more police facilities or whatever. So those are some of the dots that need to be connected. Now, to reframe the issues, what I suggest is we need to start talking in terms of growth and what it costs for growth and who's paying for that growth. Now, the loyal opposition is not going to like this, and I think that's great, because now we'll have them reacting to us rather than us reacting to them. And furthermore, I think it's great because I think it gives us as progressives an opportunity to reach out and befriend some of our conservative friends in this community who have pocketbooks just like ours and who want them protected and who want their quality of life to be maintained. And so I suggest to you that when it comes time to re-up Proposition S, not only should we ask for a vote that says you should have to come to us if you want to increase land use intensity in Escondido above the general plan's authorization levels, but we should also add another element, and that element should be, if you want to decrease or give away any of the development impact fees that your policies say should be collected, you have to come to us for a vote to agree to do that. About time we not only took the fun out of land speculation, it's about time we took the fun out of people getting abilities to elect 3 or 4 members of a city council to do their bidding. And it comes down to money. Now, I'm sure the loyal opposition at one time or another is going to see this presentation and say to themselves, whew, don't like to hear that. And I say to you, Sam and company, guess what? The train is on the track and it's headed right at you. And you've either got to figure out how you're going to deal with the people in this community who are paying the bills and trying to raise their kids and get them educated and have recreation facilities and not have to spend money out of their pocketbooks in order to maintain their quality of life standards, or you're going to have to disappoint some future developers. I suggest you prepare to disappoint some future developers.